of Social Media News Live. So excited. I got my pal Chris Stone here today. Sorry I missed last week. I was in Boise, Idaho, eating potatoes and attending Kit's Craft and Commerce conference, which was really, really good. And Boise is a really cool town. Like, we just walked around and ate and tried some, did a little bit of bar hopping and had a lot of fun with my friend Paul Gowder, who was on a couple weeks ago, and we'll be on probably in another couple weeks, but to talk about Kit's conference. But it was a lot of fun. We had a good time, hung out with the Ecamm team there. So Connor Brown, we missed you. And Chris Stone, we missed you too. So next time.
I know.
You don't often hear people say that Boise's a cool town. You don't hear that very often. Yeah, you immediately think potatoes, right?
We had some.
Or you think, the Iowa Hawkeyes or something, or no, this is Idaho. Like, I guess Idaho has a football team too.
Yeah,
Boise State, Smurf Turf, go Broncos.
Okay, right.
But yeah, Connor, you would have loved it. It was all up your alley.
I know.
It was amazing.
I definitely want to go next year. Not only to experience Boise, but to experience the conference. A quick Idaho story. Family, we were out in Yellowstone a couple years ago. Yellowstone, mainly in Wyoming and Montana. A little teeny bit is in Idaho. We were driving from one corner of the park to the other. There's two ways we could have gone. And I said, why don't we go this way? Because it goes through Idaho. And then
and
we can say we've been to Idaho and we just check it off. We don't need to go anymore. But now it sounds like I'll be going.
It was really cool. Like, I could look down the street and see the Capitol. The hotel was right across from the venue. We walked everywhere. Didn't have to Uber except for the airport. Amazing. It was a lot of fun. And I tell you, I got to see Pat Flynn speak and a bunch of other great people. So it was really, really cool. So I'm planning on going back next year. We've got our friends showing up already. We have got the amazing Gary Stockton saying, "Good morning, you beautiful people." He must be on the wrong show. It's okay, Gary. But we're here instead. Happy Friday, Gary. To you as well. Thank you for stopping by. We're going to get started because I have the amazing Chris Stone, and we're going to be talking about like his bread and butter, which is 6 secrets to video production, and we're going to be talking about that today. But I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine. Connor, are you ready, my friend?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And I'm Connor Brown, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
You ever felt like you're constantly creating content, but not seeing the traction you hope for? Maybe you're wondering how some creators seem to do one recording and suddenly have a dozen assets working for them. If that sounds familiar, well, you're going to want to catch this episode because we're joined by someone who knows exactly how to make your video content go the extra mile. Chris Stone has helped entrepreneurs, speakers, and thought leaders stop treating their content like a one-time event and start building systems that work around the clock. So in this episode, he's going to be breaking down his 6 secrets to smart, efficient video production. So sit back, clear your schedule, clear your mind, and get ready for this week's episode of Social Media News Live. Chris, my friend, how are you doing today?
Jeff, if I were any better, I would be in Boise, Idaho. Thank you for having me on the show.
That's right.
Can't wait to get into it. I think I've got 6 secrets. I'll have to,
we'll have to
so
count.
for those of you, Gary and Terry Brock, Gina Carr, Martin, James Hicks, who's here for the snacks. If I miss a secret, y'all better keep me on point, right? Because I can talk too much, And when I see the beautiful hair of Connor Brown, I just have to talk about it.
It's hard to do math live, but I mean, we'll get the 6. Yeah, look at him. Look at his golden locks.
Fabio.
Yes.
Somebody call me Fabio this week, I swear.
I don't think that's I think you heard wrong, but go ahead, Connor.
Listen, forget about my hair. The focus of today's show is about Chris Stone. If you don't know who Chris Stone is, you should, because Chris brings 25 plus years of experience from Sony Music to the world of content creation. As the founder of Cast Ahead, he's helped entrepreneurs and thought leaders stop treating their content like one and done performances and start building what he calls content machines that work while you sleep. We're always so excited to have him on the show. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you, Connor. This is truly an honor, and I mean that. Jeff, this is the best show on the interwebs. I'd be here in the chat with Davidson's All Natural Jim, or can I just call him Dang or her Dang, because that's the acronym. Right. I would be here in the chat hanging out with these folks and just absorbing all the knowledge that you guys bring every week. So it is an honor. Thank you again.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. But I want to give a shout out to our folks over at Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. That's right, ecamm.com/Jeff. And by the way, they have actually got their Creator Camp is open for everybody, but they only have like 20 tickets left. So if you want to go, make sure you go over to Ecamm and sign up to camp, because I'm going to be there speaking. A lot of my friends are going to be there. It's so much fun. This is their 3rd year. And tickets go fast. So if you want to do that, I think it's at camp.ecamm.com, I think it is. But just go to Ecamm. You'll see it on the thing. So really appreciate them sponsoring the show. But we're going to get into the 6 secrets of video today. So, Chris, we're going to just kick it off right at the beginning, because you actually spent 2 decades at Sony, and you said you squeezed every ounce of value from every single recording. So what's a core lesson from the music business that kind of helped radically reshape how you approach video now today?
Yeah, I would say this is that one thing that I learned when I was at Sony, and for those of you who are music fans, you know this as well. We wouldn't release a track from whomever and just kind of put it out there and be done. We squeezed every alternate mix. Ringtones, remember those?
Oh yeah.
Put it on an album, stick it on an EP, license it for this, do everything possible for that one track. Yet, as content creators, we decide to just do a hour-long live video and then just and hope and pray that the algorithm gods will somehow serve it up to what we think our audience wants. And it just drove me insane that I would be working with clients and they're like, hey, okay, we're done. And the live video is sitting there, and the audio podcast, maybe you create an audio podcast as well. But there wasn't this thinking beforehand that before you repurpose, you must have a purpose. And that purpose is to reach as many people as possible that you want to reach, your key audience. And if you think that they're only in one lane and watching your video on YouTube that's 1 hour long, right? And that's it, you're wrong. Those same people are on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're maybe on Snapchat, they're doing all these things. So your key audience can be found. You just have to put content that's appropriate to drive them to where you want to drive them. And so it's like, we would do this all the time in the music business. It's like, okay, we're going to create a radio edit. We're going to do the Connor Brown Chex mix of this Candlebox song. And, so all of these, different fans can maybe now be turned on to this particular artist. It's treating your content as not one and done. It's treating your content as, how can I create this stuff before I even turn on the camera, before I even, turn on the microphone, do all of this stuff, how can I create content that will be evergreen, that will last forever, that will, lasts longer than, you're alive, right?
Right.
So you're not talking about the change that Descript made last week. Actually, creating the content that's going to last longer than we will.
I think that's such a good perspective too. Like the with the music and all that. I never thought about that, but other huge companies have been doing that for forever, and it's still doing it, right? It's the deluxe album versus the regular album, just a little bit more because they want a little bit more, or the single because that's the only thing they wanted. Your secret number 1 says that repurposing starts before the camera rolls. So Chris, how do you approach that with your clients? Like, how do you help them get a clear, strategy in place before they even hit go, so that they have these pieces? Because I would assume a lot of people are coming to you and they're just nervous about recording in general. So now do they have to think through like, oh, this would be a good soundbite as they're recording the big thing? Or is it about setting up structure in place before they hit record that will help purpose?
I think a lot of times keynote speakers, I see that Terry Brock is here in the chat, who's a fantastic keynote speaker as well. They do these audio sort of interrupts already, these pattern interrupts, right? A lot of times when people talk about pattern interrupts, they think visuals, right? Jeff, you're putting lower thirds here on the video, like, wow, that was magic. See how that happened? I just did this and it showed up, right? Pattern interrupt. We think visuals all of the time. But these, what I call intentional interrupts, are something that keynote speakers, authors, sales trainers, the people that are technically my clients, I train them to say certain things that are pattern interrupts that they're probably already doing in their presentations. They'll say something like, if there's one thing you should write down and take away from today, it's this. Okay, that's a pattern interrupt, right? And so if you're kind of peppering your content with these things, there's a ton of different examples that I kind of keep and sort of use. What you're doing is, during your presentation, you're not thinking about that. You're doing that. You're delivering your presentation. But your editor, who gets all your files afterwards, like me, I know where to find those clips, because these are the important hooks that can be used to repurpose this content on other platforms. Yes, there are AI programs that will do this for you, but chances are they're not doing it as well as you would like them to do. I'm not going to call out, anything. It starts with an O, ends with an S, and in the middle is P. But these programs are great for people who don't like to edit, but they're not great for people that want to create content that's different from everyone else, that is reaching these people appropriately in these places. And so what we do is we talk about doing these intentional interrupts, because, Connor, when you do this, like what we're doing right now is live, right? But I'm talking to Rich Graham, I'm talking to James Hicks, I'm talking to Doug Lehman, breaking it down in layman's terms, Gary Stockton. All of these people are here live, right? And then the people that are maybe just lurking and not here chatting. Mm-hmm. But I'm also speaking to my future audience. And so if you have that mindset, it's not just who I'm talking to right now, but in the future, it changes everything. It changes your perspective. It changes, like, okay, yeah, if a mistake happens, it's going to happen. But can I say something that's so important that 5 years from now, it still resonates with people? Yeah. And I think that's really the mindset. And like everything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So if you're not used to speaking with intentional interrupts or planning, kind of doing that bird's eye view of my content. Okay, I'm about to do a show. Am I going to wing it? No, you're going to have a framework. Chances are you're going to have an outline. So start, peppering it in with some intentional interrupts, because later it's going to save you time. It's going to make your content better.
Yeah. And nice. It's funny. I'm so Abby's doing my daughter Abby is working for him now, and she's doing starting to do a lot of editing. And I'm trying to train her not just to use the easy tools, but to look at the actual waveform, like at the bottom of the script, because you can start to, by the way you learn how to read it, you can know where those, like the breath sounds are, where you can take those out really easy if you need to, or where there's a pause where there's going to be a great question and an answer that we can use for repurposing later. And you can actually train yourself by looking at the waveform after you've done it for a while, that, I can do this a lot faster. So I think your point is really good too. And we were joking about it at the beginning, like I gave you a bunch of questions. I do that because, and I love to hear you talk about like pre-production, thinking about it before you start, is those questions are there for me later on to help me repurpose, because I kind of know the flow. We have 3 sections usually. A lot of times we don't get to the last one, but have 5 questions each, and that gives me a little way to repurpose things. So thinking ahead of the game, I think, is really, really important. We've got some great comments from Martin says, very enlightening but simple. Yeah, those simple things, if you use them and are consistent with them, make a huge difference. And James,
keep it simple, stupid, right?
You're dropping grenades already.
I'm stupid.
No,
Martin, you're not stupid. I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Gary says, we've been doing this with our weekly commercial pulse. There's a section in our business index that I repurpose as its own video using camera angle with no overlays. That's really cool, Gary. Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. But Chris, I wanted to ask you, the next question would be like, okay, you've talked about in some past speaking gigs that I've seen you do, a segment map that you create in this pre-production process. So what questions should solopreneurs or editors ask to spot those 3 to 5 standalone segments that later can become those 8 to 10 clips that you repurpose down the line?
Yeah, it starts before the show, and again, this is a little bit like what Martin said earlier. It is somewhat simple if you really think about if you think before a show about your repurposing, you think about the amount of time that you've taken with something that you're trying to repurpose. Let's just say it's an hour-long podcast that you do with Jim Fuse. And, okay, now I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it into a program probably, and it's going to transcribe it. And then I'm going to try to create clips. How much of that are you doing yourself? And how much are you allowing, an algorithm or an AI, a bot or whatever to find that stuff for you? I do use Descript. I do use Cast Magic. I use a lot of these tools to do that. But before you even go live, before you even do that, you need to make sure you have a roadmap for where you're going to put all the content. What types of things you're going to cover. Like before I get on the show, little behind the scenes for everyone, and Jeff mentioned it, there's a framework for this show. It's one of the reasons why the show works so well, because you can bring on someone who is more experienced in a live situation and doesn't like a lot of organization, when they're delivering as a guest. I'm kind of one of those. I like to have a little fun. I like to be able to answer questions on the fly. If somebody's got a question that they want to bring in, I can answer it. I like to do that. But other people, they just are more comfortable having more of a framework around it. And they want to know the questions before. They want to have a call before the call, right? And before the podcast, right? Let's talk about exactly what I'm going to do. That doesn't feel very organic and live to me. But when you do a segment map, you have an idea. I can't jump too far off the rails here, right? I need to deliver these 5 things today. That's important that my audience hear these, 5 or 6 things that I'm going to talk about. And so it keeps your mind on the rails, because, I'm already off the rails. As you can tell, I can go into a million different directions. We're not going to get to like 6 different questions that are on this thing, unless Jeff tells me to shut up at some point.
No, you're good.
But it's really about creating that framework, which does include making sure you have consistent file naming. How many hours, Jeff, have we spent looking for something because a client says, hey, this show I did in 2022 with Aaron's Acres, can you pull a clip that, where she talked about this, and this? And I'm like, I think so. And it takes you 2 hours to find it, to edit it, to clip. But if you organize yourself on the front end, that takes minutes. Right. And so you create a repository for your content, and okay, I know that that's going to be found in this particular file name convention, in this particular folder. And then I make all of that stuff available to my clients so they can search for it. And then I don't have to take the time to look for it.
Yeah. And you can charge them for finding it and archiving it. So there you go.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit.
Next level thinking there.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk about that, how you structure things in a second, but I do want to get to this real quick, because I think Catherine brings up an interesting point, and it kind of goes into a question that I had. She says, I like to think everything I say will resonate in 5 years. So Chris, when you're how long form, piece of content, and you want to break it up into 8 to 10 clips, of course, you're not going to post those clips 8 days in a row right after you post the long form, right? The reason you're doing this is so that it can elongate your content marketing. You can go for days, weeks, and months past when you initially put out that long form piece of content. But how can you balance that, like real-time interaction versus these evergreen kind of clips that are going to be relevant, months, maybe 6 months down the line? Like if we're talking about the AI babies right now, right? Hilarious, but in this time next year, will this clip be applicable? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with your word usage. So on this show, it's called Social Media News Live or Creator News Live, right? And so it's live, and you would think when you show up, you're going to get the news of the day. And here is, this is what happened with ChatGPT today. They just announced this, and this happened, and we got this press release in, breaking news, like stuff like that. I think too many times as solo creators, from small to mid-level, nobody kind of knows you yet. So you're not really trusted to deliver that stuff. And it sort of gives people content to listen to and to watch, but it has a very short lifespan. And so you don't use content, you don't use language, and you don't date yourself, right? You don't show up and say, I don't know if you guys know this, but Instagram just announced that Reels can now go for 14 minutes or whatever that thing is. That's cool for like a week or two, But like
Right,
you're not going to be able to use that stuff. It's just now it's going to come out during the course of a podcast, of a show. That kind of stuff is somebody might ask it. But I think, Connor, you bring up a really good point, and that is one thing that I also teach that's a part of this sort of secrets is, you'll get questions. Jeff, you get great questions. You have like the smartest audience, right? In the chat room, right? Because I'm not in it, right? I'm not dumbing it down at this point. Like this chat is just killing it today.
right.
But like when someone brings on a question, right? And somebody were to say, hey, Chris, what do you think about this, 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 and this, and this? You know what that becomes? That becomes great content, because the chances are that one person, like there's hundreds, potentially thousands of people that have that very same question. And so it's really important, if you do get that question, to use that content. Don't just like use it for the live show. It's hugely important that somebody had the guts to jump in the chat and ask a question, put themselves out there. And now you're going to take that and you're going to say, there's other people that don't have the guts that I can serve. And so that's the idea with the chat. That's another sort of, I call it a secret. We're trying to clickbait everybody in, right? So shh, don't tell anybody. This is a secret. But like too many people in a live show don't use these questions and think, wow, there are hundreds more people that don't have the guts to ask it, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to put it out there and answer those questions and serve those people.
Yeah. And one of the things, this is a little side secret, is so we have those questions we mentioned before, that we have them all kind of listed on kind of how we want the show to flow. But what we do is, one of the reasons I love having a co-host, and Connor's amazing at this, is that it gives me a little bit more breathing room to go and look. And you do the same thing with Dealcasters, I know, with Jim. You're able to go and look at kind of the content. And what we do is those five questions for each segment. If somebody asks one in the chat that's better or even slightly similar, we'll bring that in and we'll skip that question, because awesome. I want the people from the audience to be interacting more than I want to get a list of questions in. We've all seen the podcasters or live interviewers where you can tell they're just scratching off and jumping to the next question. I don't want that. I want a dialogue. I want a conversation. I think that's great. And in fact, this is a great time to bring it in from Catherine. She goes, meeting people at their pain point may be the best way to keep those words evergreen. I think that is a 100%. Great tip. Yeah.
Catherine's just dropping bombs in the chat. That's like, Catherine, you're awesome. Yeah, it's Jeff, and it's another great way to build your community. Like too many people, they take their content. It's important that you understand that when we do this, and this is I use this show as an example all the time when people talk about how do I build a community, right? And there's people who are high level people that don't have a community. Sure, they have like a paid thing where you can look at their courses, but they don't really have a social almost relationship like we do with Jeff C. and Connor Brown. And the reason is what you just talked about. These people feel like they're being seen. They feel like they're being heard. You're not going, well, I could probably ask that question better. I have ChatGPT gave me a really good, thing with M dashes so that I can ask a really great question here. But no, you're bringing in James Hicks. You're bringing in Catherine Lang. You're bringing in Jim Fuse of Fusion Marketing. And everyone feels heard. And now everyone's comfortable to ask questions. Mm-hmm. If you're not showing people that you're creating a community and that everyone can feel comfortable here, no one's going to do it. And you're just going to be trumpeting all of your information. And then you're hoping it's another great way to get feedback, right? And another great way to get help when somebody's frozen on screen. Chris is frozen on screen, Jeff, take him off.
That's right. You're not frozen on my screen. You look great. So one of the things too is, this is specifically for live shows. And if you if you're consistent, you go live the same time each week or whenever you want to do that at, and also that you become known for answering questions and bringing up comments on screen, then people will stick around for the entire show because they think that maybe their question will be answered. So it's having that expectation of your audience and letting them come in and interact with you, I think is really, really cool. I want to jump in right to this is going to be really practical because I know you're really in this and you're the one who I ask for a lot of these questions. Is I want to talk about how to capture what you need to capture quality assets when we're talking about repurposing and creating video content, because many marketers still, they treat audio as an afterthought. So what are some practical, like switches, gear, room treatments, all that stuff to turn ordinary video into like a really nice, ready-made video podcast episode?
Everybody buy this microphone. It's an Electric Voice RE20. It's $450. Everybody runs. We just lost the entire chat. No. The number one thing in every piece of content you create is being clearly understood, period. That doesn't mean spend money. That doesn't mean show an expensive microphone. It doesn't mean any of that kind of stuff. It means someone has to hear me speak and be understood. Then you work on yourself. You work on delivering the content, right? Generally, you want to be in a small dead room, put some fluffy stuff around you, make sure you're not in some tall ceilings with bright walls. I mean, we're going to have computer screens in front of us, so glass is going to reflect your voice. And I think Jim and I talk about this. The funny thing is, Jeff, every time Jim and I go on Dealcasters and we were to go live, we're doing a product thing and we're talking about microphones, and every once in a while somebody will go, should I get this or should I get that? We have to talk about the room you're in, some sound treatment. That doesn't mean like, Google sound treatment, because you're going to see, again, money. Everyone's trying to send you like here's the wall treatment for this, and here's this. No, grab some fluffy stuff. Get into a room, right? Get a light in front of your face and not behind you. You want to get out of witness protection, right? Get your camera up so that it's eye level, like you see here, right? And all of this stuff doesn't cost anything. Like, you got lights in your house, you've got a phone, you can get it. Just make sure that you're in the frame properly. And as far as a microphone's concerned, I would suggest someone invest in a dynamic microphone. And that doesn't mean like a lot of money. There's some great affordable microphones. I'm sharing a sheet with everyone here that's viewing and watching, and a link to be able to download my entire tech stack, which includes software, includes all the hardware. That way I don't have to talk about all this stuff. But generally, like a Samson Q2U microphone is still $60, and I have 3 of them sitting over here, and I use them all the time. And I suggest them for lots of people. If you only have $60 to spend, that's it. If you've got $100, maybe, chances are you have a smartphone already. It's a camera. It's a great camera, and you get earbuds with it. Like, all of this just costs, you can get yourself going for the cost of an Xbox, which you probably already bought for your kid.
Right.
So that don't think you have to invest in a ton of gear. It's more important to understand how to speak into a microphone, how to make sure that you get a dynamic microphone, because that's going to kill the fans and some of the stuff that's around you, and just get into a room where you can be clearly heard and understood.
So, Chris, a follow-up question to this, and I know the answer, but I wanted to get you to say it for repurposing later. Is it more important to upgrade audio or video first? If you had like just a little bit of money, like you mentioned, $60 for a microphone, but should you save up for the camera first, or should you save up for the mic first?
I mean, if somebody already has a smartphone, then definitely a mic, 100%. I mean, audio's, you listen, if you're using there's a laptop that you maybe have, right? Or maybe your iPad. Like, the camera in those, I know they're getting better, but they still are not made for this. They just aren't. I'm sorry. They're functional, but they're just not made for this, especially the microphone that's in those. So if somebody's showing up on Creator News Live and they have their laptop and they don't have a microphone, it's going to sound bad. It's just going to sound like you're in an echo chamber. And it's a nightmare for people like me to edit out. And when you try to edit, it's just not, it's cutting off your words because you're getting the echo in your microphone. So speaking across the top of the microphone, not into it. So, you don't hear all those plosives that when you say words like pizza and podcast, that air goes across and not into the diaphragm of the microphone, pounding out everybody's ears, and that you can't fix that stuff. And, generally the reason why we have in-ear monitors or cans around our ears is so that the sound doesn't come out of there into a microphone. So you get the clear, understood thing. And these are all things that we thought, because we have the curse of knowledge, right, guys, that we think everybody knows this stuff, and they don't. So there's somebody out there today, or maybe 5 years from now when they're hearing this, in the year 2032. See, live mathing is not a thing.
That's great. Props to you, man.
They're hearing this, and this is the first time they've ever heard that. I mean, you would thought after a pandemic, people would understand, oh, you know what? I need to stop looking like I'm on witness protection on my Zoom calls. But it still happens on podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've had to edit them, as I know you have too. Yeah.
Jeff's nightmares are, he wakes up from I just had a nightmare. A guest showed up on an iPad without headphones. That's the kind of thing he fears.
And that's happened before. I've had somebody show up in an elevator. Like, what? Anyway, go ahead.
Really?
Nice.
And they were in there the whole show?
Yeah, so this is so funny because, we used to do so this is way back when I did it for Social Media Examiner. We would do pre-calls with people to make sure their tech was right. That's the tech check. Mm-hmm. And we had a great check. She did it. It was perfect. And then she showed up at a different location, and part of it was in an elevator. And I'm like, well, wow, why did we check? You're not. What
was the reason? What was the reason for the tech check?
I know. So anyway, that's one of the things. You never know. But go ahead, Connor. You had a question.
Well, yeah, Chris, one thing you said, the importance of being heard, but you also said the importance of being understood. And that goes to good audio quality, but also goes to how you're saying things and how you're communicating and how you're, not necessarily stumbling over your words, because we stumble over our words all the time. Makes this show great. But it's how you're effectively communicating, especially to the audience, right? You said something you want to warn against, as you can see here, language, especially when it's a video being recorded, but you're going to reformat it or push it out into an audio format as well. That's one thing that drives me crazy. I'm listening to audio podcast. It was clearly filmed as a video podcast, and they say, yeah, let's take a look at this clip. I'm like, let's not. Maybe we skip ahead, right? Because I'm out of it. So can you share an example of, maybe there is a guest that's on and it's a video show and you do have a slide up. How would someone go about not necessarily speaking to the slide, but really just talking more broadly so it works for audio in general?
Yeah, you're going to slip up when you're doing video podcasting. Every once in a while, you're going to slip up. It happens all the time. So part of the process of sound checking or doing the pre-production that you do when the guest joins, one of the line items that I talk to every time with them is, we repurpose this into an audio podcast. So at any point in time, you're going to see visuals on the screen. You're going to be tempted to talk about them. Just realize there are some people that are just listening only. So be as descriptive as possible. And I would say 99 times out of 100, they go, oh, like that, because they think it's just a YouTube video, or they think this is a show that everyone is watching. But we're taking the content, we're repurposing to somebody's out, walking their dog, somebody's out driving, someone is visually impaired. Like, we have to think about being like inclusive from the standpoint of right now. And I've done this when I watch your show, Jeff and Connor, is I will have it on and I'm multitasking. I'm listening to Dustin Stout talk about Magi, and but I got stuff to do right now. There's a bunch of people that have the show open on their phone or their iPad or open a tab on their computer. And the second I say something like, oh, did you see this? Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, yeah. And then you click here, and then you click here, and then you click here. Those things are pattern interrupts, but they're sending people the wrong way that are just listening. So what we do is we try to be as descriptive as possible. I got a lot of training doing this when I was doing product demonstrations for Dealcasters. When I'm showing a microphone, I'm going through the software and I'm checking boxes. I will, even though that is never going to be repurposed into audio, be as descriptive as possible. I am clicking in the upper left-hand corner on the button that says File, and then I'm clicking on the compression button, like say it. Don't say, I'm clicking here, I'm clicking here, I'm doing this, and then you do this. Like those are things that people are listening, they feel excluded.
Right.
And this is a show that everyone feels included in, right? And I think, Jeff, when you bring comments on the screen, like when Billy Thorpe, who's in the chat, puts in a comment or asks a question, you'll bring it in, you'll say, Billy Thorpe asks, and you say it. And when you're listening to that in an audio only situation, you're like, okay, I guess this show is recorded live. Maybe I should join the show live when it's live on Fridays at 11 Eastern. So you can promote things, together, but you're not excluding the person who's just listening only.
Yeah, I think that's important. Oh, go ahead.
You miss 3 things when you don't show up live. Unity, you miss my beautiful hair, and you miss the crumbs beard. That's why you got to show up live, right?
That's right. You never know. It takes a lot to glue this thing on. One of the things, so I was going to bring this up from Catherine, because she said this is a great point. She goes, you could offer the slides as a download for those that connect with you and are listening to the audio. And in fact, that's a great little segue to Chris has a thing. If you go to castahead.net/CNL, that's castahead.net/CNL for you folks listening, that you can go and get his all his tools and things that he uses and everything amazing that is Chris Stone. So go check that out. But one of the things that we try to do is I don't usually let people say, hey, can I do some slides or can I show some things on screen? I'm usually like, no, because it's a podcast too. And a lot of it is host-led. Like if we do have something that somebody brings on screen, I'll usually say, okay, can you go back and talk about what you actually clicked on there? As you were using that clicked example, if you have to kind of guide people because they do forget and you're kind of in charge. So you have to kind of, steer the boat as it would. And Billy even said he's had somebody that was on a moving boat using a phone for a live show. So never had that. Now it's going to happen. That sounds fun. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because he does a fishing show, I think. So
he did. Yeah, that's how he kind of like.
Sense.
Yeah, he was a big time. Like he had a huge podcast and all sorts of things, which it's really, really cool. And then Stark Raving Entrepreneurs, Terry Brockhead says audio is the most important part of video. People can tolerate some wonky video to an extent, but if the audio is bad, they have a whole internet full of quality content to hear. Yeah, they'll just move on. That's a great point, Terry.
Yeah, and if I could just double down on that, sure. This is the reason why we're doing this is because there is so much noise out there. And I'm Terry or Gina who made that comment. It's important that we stand out, right? And I'm not talking clickbait here. I'm not talking, duck face on the thumbnail. I'm talking about quality content. Of course, you have to understand hooks and things like that. But we're doing this because there are so many options in the way of you. And it's not just stuff on YouTube. It's not just podcasts. We're talking streaming, movies. We're talking social media. We're talking all kinds of stuff that is in the way. And so you have to understand, like, the biggest purpose is whatever your mission is, whatever your course you're trying to sell, the book you're trying to sell, the podcast you're trying to get more subscribers to, like all of these things. Like, it's not just about SEO. It's not just about these things. You're trying to gain the trust of these people, and you have a few seconds sometimes on some of these clips. And, sure, things can go viral here and viral there, but do they really last? You can create a cartoon of yourself, right, cutting a glass hamburger and holding an action figure or whatever the new thing is. That's right. Cool. And you're going to get a bunch of, dopamine, and you're going to get but what kind of like long-lasting, long-quality content are you creating to get noticed? And so you've got to understand, like, there's noise in the way, and if you take the time to do these things and create quality content that stands apart, like, number one, you could sleep well at night,
right? And
number two, it's like it's content that lives longer than you will. It's really creating a legacy. It's really creating the evergreen type of content and not chasing some viral thing that somebody else did that's a Xerox copy of a fax copy of a written napkin of the original.
Right. And to be honest, I mean, if you look at my feed, we repurpose stuff all the time. Like, this thing will be chopped up a million different ways, and it will be in a queue, and it will continually go out. I have never had anybody gripe about that. And in fact, those links, it makes me money. That's why I do it. It's not because, I'm not just trying to, get a bunch of clicks and throw up, a cartoon face of me. Now, if it works and it makes sense and it'd be kind of fun, that's okay to do. That's fine. Yeah. Like, it's fun to get in kind of what's happening in the culture. But I want to provide value to my audience, and that allows me to make a living. And that's what we all are trying to do. So don't be scared to share, like what Chris has been teaching us this entire time, those clips and those evergreen pieces of yourself, and keep sharing them, because you get new people coming in your audience and you have a churn that happens, and they may have not seen this great interview that I did with Chris.
Exactly.
So
exactly. I love that you brought that up, Jeff, because we even do this. And if you look on Dealcaster's feeds, on our podcast feeds, we'll have a show every week, but we don't have a show every week. Well, how do these guys do that, right? I'm looking on their podcast feed, and I know last week they interviewed Tatiana Rodriguez, and I see that. But the week before, they didn't have a guest, and the week before, they didn't have a guest, but I see an interview from Mark Savant, and I see another interview from Alex Sanfilippo, right? In a couple weeks, you're going to see our interview with Jeff C. We had that interview a year and a half ago with Jeff.
Right.
I'm taking, because I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that everyone is watching and listening to our content. Even our biggest super fans aren't catching every single episode. They're just not. Jeff, as much as I love this show, I don't catch 100% of every single one of them.
What?
I try. I really do. I try.
I know.
The Billy Thorpe one was awesome, by the way. And the James Hicks one was pretty good. But, so why not? Why not just, and so what you do is you go into your podcast feed, you're in control of your RSS feed, and you take it and put a shiny coat of paint on it, put a new thumbnail on it, change up the SEO on it, different title, feed it back into ChatGPT or Cast Magic or whatever you use. Take that and put a new shine on it, right? And make some new clips to promote it. If you are creating evergreen content, right, then you should have no problem putting that thing back out. Again, back to the music analogy, right? You're repurposing things. How many times have you bought your favorite album on a different configuration? Right. You're buying it on vinyl. You have the old cassette sitting in the back. You have, whatever. Oh, this one was remastered by Tom Lord Alge. I got to be able to get that or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you can still do that. I mean, music is a little different than podcasts from that perspective, but no one is listening to every single podcast that you put out. It's just not happening. I mean, as much as I'm a fan of a lot of different podcasts, I'm not listening to every single one of them, and I'm consuming them different ways in different places. And so that's the concept, is to take that, repurpose it, put a shiny coat of paint on it, and put it out there. And if someone has, look, I'm putting out the James Hicks interview. I already heard this. Okay, cool. Move on. You didn't lose.
Nobody gripes about it. No one was going to go, oh, what's he doing? They don't. They just move on. Yeah. So I think we overthink a lot of things. Go ahead, Connor.
If we're using this strategy, of repurposing content, and it's a critical component of our content marketing strategy, what's the one thing everyone has been complaining about on social media, rightly so, for the last few years? Not enough people are seeing my clips. Not enough people are seeing my content, right? We know that that's true. So you shouldn't worry about reposting something you've already posted, because not everyone has seen it. So there's absolutely no harm in doing it. And it just makes perfect sense. But to that, point, Chris, what do you think? If we're using these clips to kind of feed our social media feeds and put that content out there so that people and watch the full show later, what's a good balance of repurpose content versus, no, I'm just making this post right now just for this feed, just for this platform? Is there a healthy balance? Is there something that you do?
I mean, like an answer to many questions, especially in the podcasting industry, it depends. Yeah. But I think mostly it depends on the platform that you're posting your content on. It's not everything works for every platform. And I think, I'm glad you brought this up, Connor, because I think a lot of people think when they post something and they don't get the views, right? They don't get that dopamine that they hope they got. Like you craft this great looking short, and and it has this and it's got the hook, and then I pulled in this and I pulled in that, and you look and it's like womp womp, 84 views, and you're like, what the heck? Like, it must suck. No, that's not it. right? You're up against noise, like I talked about earlier. You're up against algorithms. You're up against all kinds of other stuff that's in the way. So maybe it doesn't work right now, like you're talking about. So you earmark that and you go, okay, that didn't work on Instagram for, at this moment, right? But, how does it work here on TikTok? How does it work here on YouTube as a short? How does it work here? Am I adding the right thing to the content in terms of keywords and titles and hashtags or whatever on that content that's appropriate for the platform? So we're not taking the same thing that we're posting in YouTube and just putting that into 17 other places, because you could do that and kind of see what sticks and then maybe kind of go down those rabbit holes. But try to be more tactical with it. I don't think you need to 17 shorts from every 1 hour interview. If you can be tactical about it, be smart, because you may get found. You may get somebody to watch it. And if you made something that's quality, that's the person you want, right? If 84 people watched that particular, Instagram reel that I just talked about, what if it was like 84 of the right people? What if you ended up getting more attention because of it? And a lot of the stuff that we talk about, especially with the people the people that I work with, is a lot of it's just impressions over and over and over again. So Jeff, Connor, like how many times did somebody go, "Hey, do you know who Jill Johnson is?" And apologies to the real Jill Johnson. This is just an example,
right?
And you go, I don't know who Jill. Oh, she's the woman who talks about peanut butter while she's out gardening. And you're like, I don't. And they show you a picture or they send you a video and you go, that's who that is. Right? That's the impression value that you get on a lot of this stuff, because you're getting people that are just driving by your content and they're seeing this face and they're seeing that beard and they're seeing that coiffed, beautiful hair of Connor Brown.
Look at that.
And, drinking at Disney after dark. And they're like, okay, that's the guy that tells me the best beer prices at Disney. Right? So it's a lot of it just has to do that. You don't look at the views and think that it's not good content, right? You continue to take your best swing at this stuff, put it out there and move like a shark through it. And then, find out what is sticking, and just know that at least you're getting those impressions, because people are watching, people are listening. They just might not be letting you know.
Yeah. In fact, it's really interesting you say that, because when I go speak at conferences, a lot of times people come up that I see your show every week. And I'm like, really? Because you never say anything in the comments ever. Yeah. But they recognize you, it's kind of hard to hide the beard, but being consistent and going out there and putting that consistent content out there, I think is super important. And I thought it was just a great point, Chris. Catherine Lang says this: "Thank you for this reminder. Everyone hasn't seen it, so it's okay to reshare. Not everyone has read my book, but should I stop talking about it because I mentioned it once? No, over and over. And you can do it, and just the same way that we do with things here, we try to make it really organic. In fact, if you haven't signed up for my newsletter, just go right here to my newsletter, jeffc.com/news. See how slick and easy that was? It's just organic.
You have a kind of a Santa Claus vibe in those images.
I know. So it's kind of this new character that I've been using for when I speak. I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. This is the new ChatGPT.
And for those audio-only listeners, Jeff is sharing an image of himself that it looks like him.
Yeah.
And he has a kind of a rounder nose, almost like Santa Claus without...
Exactly. But it's got a good beard.
Santa Claus after bowling.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So jeffc.com/news to sign up for the amazing newsletter. But see, Gary says, if there's no live show, I will track you down. It's funny because Gary did last week while we were gone at Boise. Nice. My friend Lou Mangello, when he forgets to do a live show on Wednesday, people think he's been in an accident. They live and die by that show. And so it's just kind of cool how that stuff happens. But anyway, back to our secrets. One of the things, Chris, I wanted to ask you. So let's say somebody's got a DSLR, they've got a decent microphone. What's the rookie mistake that you see people who are doing podcasts or video podcasts make when they're first starting out that you could help them avoid?
I think it's using it's using language like we talked about earlier. It's using language assuming everybody's watching and not just listening, but also using, we talk about what everyone should be doing. There's also things that you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be saying things like, as we wrap up, right? So what happens when you say that? That's a pattern interrupt. And what that does is everyone, what do? They tune out, right? So there's things like that. Or don't start out a podcast interview. Okay, tell me about yourself. What's your origin story, right? We didn't do that here. You guys do a great job of introducing the show and telling everyone, here's what you're going to get, and then give it to them. So the biggest mistake I think that everyone makes is they see the greatest podcasts on the internet, whether it's Diary of a CEO or Joe Rogan or whatever, and they see these things. And sometimes they just start out and everybody's just kind of chilling, they're smoking cigars and talking about whatever. Right. And they think they can do that because that's what these successful podcasters do. Nobody knows you yet. Right. So you do a station identification. I learned this from Kirk Nugent. This is another success clue from our friend Kirk Nugent. Station identification. Tell everybody where they're going. Right. You get on a plane. This is, flight 777 to Akron. Whoops. I'm supposed to be going to Vegas. Get off the plane. Right. So let everybody know this is where we're going. And so they know, okay, I should be here. This is the place that I need to be. I need to hear the 6 secrets for video production that I should be doing for my podcast. And then you're telling these people who I am. So it kind of gives a validity of some, thing. Then I talk and if they don't like what they're hearing, they don't like my voice, which is okay, then they're out. But if they do like, it's a station identification thing. So the first thing that people need to realize, and the mistake most people make, is they think everybody knows and likes them already. Right. And they just don't. Most people don't. So when they hit play, in your mind, you got to say, this is what you're getting, and then give it to them.
Yeah. That's why I had Connor on, because I mean, everybody likes Connor and his long hair. That's why I bring him on.
Oh, hair is fantastic.
Wow. Yeah. I thought that was going to go into a joke about me, but thank you, Jeff. Yeah. I appreciate that. That's why
you guys are so sweet. You're so sweet. Such a great pairing.
This is a love fest. Yeah. All right.
A friendly Friday.
Take me out of the middle.
So we've talked a little about this. I want to get into the organizational structure that Chris Stone has, which might be terrifying, but I doubt it is. You talked a bit about, file names. And I think it's one thing to record all this stuff, right? And have it ready. But if we can't find it when we're ready to post, or we can't find it when we want to repurpose something or push something out again, then it's all for naught, right? It doesn't matter what we planned ahead for. If we can't find it in the moment, it doesn't make any sense at all. You mentioned, Chris, consistent file names, some searchable transcript options, right? What does that folder tree look like? How are you structuring things? Are you doing it around topics? Are you doing it super long names so you can search for it? But how do you handle that stuff?
There is nothing more scintillating that will drive more people to a podcast than to talk about folder trees and organizations. I am absolutely everyone sit back, get ready. I'm going to take 25 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. So the reason why this is an important part of this whole strategic content extraction process is because I've spent way too many hours and lost way too many files and couldn't serve the clients that pay me to do this. And as all of this stuff is happening around us with AI and, there's all kinds of people that can do what we do, and there's bots that can do what we do. So people are choosing to not hire you because they can do things themselves. I have to create more value for what I do. And one of the things that I create more value is I create repositories for my clients. So when someone says, hey, I need this, I can deliver it. Right. And Jeff talked about charge. It's all wrapped into the charge that I do. Hey, I need to create a quote graphic for people that have talked about this particular topic. It should not take you longer than 10 minutes to find that. If it takes you 10 minutes to find a file, transcript where Kirk Nugent said this about this, you're doing it wrong. And so everyone's going to have their own kind of, way of organization. I use Dropbox is my sort of, software of choice, just because it just works for me. And, it's not just here's a dumping ground for podcast A, podcast B, podcast C. It starts there, right? Here's my client brand, right? But every single, like, here's a folder for all of their shows. And then underneath that, episode numbers, right? And so all of those, and then within those episodes, it's all of the assets, right? And so you're going to have the full length, you're going to have the transcript, you're going to have the cover art, you're going to have the podcast cover art, you're going to have the clips. And then as you post those things, you're denoting where they're going, right? So when Victor Antonio puts one of the clips that I made for him on his Instagram, it's marked, and we can see that it was done, so that I don't go, did I send him a piece of content that he never used? Right. And so, I'm constantly going back. And if you're creating evergreen content and you find out somebody didn't use content that you gave them a year ago, it's still good.
Right.
Yeah. You still put it out, right? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you made it the right way, you made it in, clearly understood, right? You didn't look like you're witness protection, but you said something that is great, that still resonates, that wasn't about ChatGPT 2.0, right? Because that's dated, right? It's going to be okay to be able to use it. And so that's really what it is. It's organizing all of your content, taking that, organizational structure, and then I used it here, I used it here, I used it here, I used it here. And then you can, fill in the cracks. Okay. Right. This didn't get used. This did get used. Here's how it did. So you have a way of doing it. There's no, let me take 2 hours to try to figure out how that one pin that I put up on Pinterest did from 2023. Yeah. Like, it's not, it should not take you longer than 10 minutes. So having that organizational structure on the front end is critical.
So I'm going to get real nerdy. And so Dropbox, use that, love it for file sharing and everything. What we have done, and it has been a lifesaver, because I was a little disorganized when I first started the company. And as I, matured, I started getting more really getting things organized. And one of the things I've used now is Notion. And I love Notion because it looks really crazy when you open it up, but if you get it set up right, then it just works. And I can look at Notion and say, okay, I'm editing this podcast. This one is to Abby. This one's to Shannon to do sound design with. This is where it's been posted. This is the repurposing thing. And so I have to, when you start having a bunch of clients, and Chris, you know this because you do all the different things with all these different places, is you need to know where everything is on what stage and what has been used, or you're not going to be in business very long. And so that's right. For me, Notion has been the way to really track that and look at everything all at once and kind of manage everything. So there's some great templates out there. If you guys want anything, any ideas, just shoot me an email and I'll send you what I've been using, the templates that I have purchased. So anyway, and Gary goes, yeah, also, the struggle is real. Yeah, it's very true.
It also creates more business for you to be able to upsell your client base, right? So, there are lots of times where you're like, we're creating all of this podcast content, and I'm creating all this content to be posted on social media, and that's all well and good. But can we create a book with this content? Can we create something that you could use as a guide in your stores for this, that, or the other by utilizing this content that we have? Like, get creative. If you had easy access to all of the content you ever put out, what would you do with it? It's getting there, folks. Like, I am creating apps I don't know if you guys have ever used Replit. So these are client repositories for every single piece of their content. So I can jump in there and go, pull me all the quotes that somebody's talked about fear on Dealcasters. And it will pull every single quote where the word fear was mentioned, the timestamp of the podcast episode. And so now all of a sudden this content that you forgot about because you recorded 4 years ago, you've got all of these quotes, and you're taking that content and you're driving people back to this evergreen content as well. So having that structure around it, don't think about this stuff just being done. And if you're somebody that does this for other people or yourself, you can. And I'm frozen on the screen, which is
you're
amazing.
Back. You're back. You said what?
Oh, okay.
Say that last part again.
Yeah. you're creating something valuable as well that you can upsell to other people. Whether it's a book, it's a lead magnet, it's all of these things that people are like, this is really cool. A course, like all of these things you can do by utilizing content you've already created. You just got to pull it off the shelf. You got to be able to find it. So organize yourself on the front end, or organize it now, so that you can do things like use AI agents to create applications for you that will design these things for you.
I think that's awesome. The other thing is, and you mentioned it, Chris, is if you will know the content better than your client, and having this repository, it's just another upsell because they forget what they have, and you can say, "Oh no, you said this, this, and this. You've got all this stuff. We could make you an ebook out of it." Oh my gosh, you are so much more valuable to that client because they have totally forgot about what they said because they're relying on you for everything. So having that, I think, is super, super important. Very good. Yeah.
You're like the client's wife that remembers everything, right?
Right. That's great. That's a great.
You remember, Jeff, when in 1984,
you said this.
You said this.
Yeah.
Like, no, I did. Oh yeah.
Well, I get in trouble for things she dreams. Like, I dreamt that you did this, and I'm like,
I get that too.
Anyway, we are at time, folks. This has been amazing. Gary made a great point. Make sure you guys go look. It's in the YouTube comments, but he talks about the importance of backups, like using NAS and drives. And like, I totally agree, Gary. Using drives and backing up stuff is so important. So many people forget about that. But something that we will have back is Chris Stone because he's amazing. Chris, I want to have a little bit of time for you to talk about what you got going on. We are going to bring up your amazing call to action that you put on the screen for people to download your stuff. So it's at castahead.net/CNL. But you have the floor, my friend.
Yeah, I'm at castahead.net. I work with motivated entrepreneurs to create a show because a lot of people, they don't want to learn how all the stuff works, how to find all the stuff, how to repurpose all this stuff, and we do it for them. And if you like to do that yourself, my site has all kinds of great stuff for you as well that helps you as a solopreneur. In addition to that, if you go to castahead.net/CNL, I've got my entire tech stack, which includes the software that I use every day for myself and for my clients, as well as the hardware. So the microphones, the cameras, the teleprompters, all of that kind of stuff, the stuff that I recommend every day on our show, Dealcasters, with my good buddy Jim Fuse, who's in the chat and joining us as well. And then, of course, the whole game plan that I talked about, the 6 secrets, and what I do for other people is your hero clips, creating your micro clips, and the mindset of how to put all that stuff together on the front end, because it's not just about the audience that's here live right here, right this second. This is about your future audience as well.
That is awesome. Connor Brown, where can people find the amazing, unsinkable Connor Brown?
Unsinkable Connor Brown, vacationkingdoms.com, at Vacation Kingdoms across the interwebs. It's not too late to plan a vacation this summer. And of course, at Theme Park Happy Hour, when, as Jeff likes to say, you can watch me get drunk at Disney, even though that's not what's happening.
Yes.
Theme Park Happy
I don't know about that. Anyway, so seriously, but Connor's great. I'm going to do some cruises next year. They announced some new cruises. And so I'm having Connor going to plan those. So make sure you check him out at Vacations Kingdoms. I would love if you guys to sign up for my newsletter, jeffc.com/news. We talk about great things over there, have a great community, and we also let you know what guests we have coming on the show. So jeffc.com/news. And always our amazing sponsors, Ecamm. You can find out more about them at ecamm.com/Jeff. You can save 15% by using code Jeff15 on your first purchase. And with that, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Terry Brock, Catherine, everybody who watched the show and had the amazing comments. We appreciate you. We wouldn't be able to do the show without you. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.